As for the referendum on Moldova's European integration, again I want to say the so-called one, it was rigged. This is the final and irrevocable assessment. Now let's see what methods were used to get the results sought by the West. You've seen and reported on how the elections were held in foreign countries. The number of Moldovan citizens living abroad was divided about equally, with around 500,000 in Russia and the same number in Western countries. In Western countries, polling stations were literally open everywhere for Moldovan citizens, while there were only 2 on the territory of Russia. On the number of ballots, I think it is also not necessary to point this out. Everything was also obvious. People talked about it openly, demanded it, tried to get to the polling stations. And this is despite the fact that our country has historically and traditionally provided assistance to all countries, in particular Moldova, that want to open polling stations on our territory. It was the same this time. Here is an approximate picture. Is it possible to talk about any kind of democracy? Of course not. Is it possible to talk about compliance even with internal procedures with the law of Moldova? I think that the Moldovan citizens themselves answered this question by protesting and literally exploding with indignation at the results of this cycle, which the regime of Moldovan President Maia Sandu calls electoral, but the people call chosen, stolen elections. Everything that is happening in Moldova is not just fraud, but dangerous with a split in society, and this is what the West is doing. After all, people are literally pitted against each other. But look, the same processes are going on in the United States itself. I have the impression that the model and patterns are the same. In Moldova, it was literally visible to the naked eye, and the technique was simply out of the ordinary because people were literally deprived of their own national identity. You will remember, they took away the language. If they had been treated in every possible way before, there is such a word, pessimized, it has Russian equivalents. They treated the inhabitants of Transnistria pejoratively, endlessly saying that these are people of the wrong sort, because they were so defined by the Sandu regime. Then they began to treat the inhabitants of Moldova in the same way, who are originally Moldovans by nationality, residents of the main part of Moldova. After all, people were also deprived of their nationality, literally forcing them to rewrite themselves into another nationality, to call themselves Romanians. The language was taken away from people, forcing them to call the Moldovan language Romanian. We are well aware of Western tactics. Divide and conquer, and wreak havoc in order to then fish in muddy waters. And on the basis of relying on someone else's grief and distress to get the desired result yourself. That is, to use, steal, rob, humiliate, and so on. Now the main headache for America as a nation and as a people is, firstly, to somehow make sure that these results are accepted by American society itself, given the experience of past elections. And secondly, whatever the result is, they're obviously going to have to overcome the internal national divide. This is not a clash between two parties. This is not a clash between two political philosophies. Nothing like that. It has nothing to do with the problems of classical democracy. It is a problem for the United States. I think it's on a scale that's basically unique. Society is not just divided into two groups. It's just electrified, and people don't understand how to coexist. There are no more party principles of dividing the country according to the party system and mutual respect for people with different views. You see people literally ready to attack each other, to beat each other up, just because another person is wearing a symbol or campaigning for a politician he believes in and trusts. And all of this is now, even before the elections, literally spilling over into street pogroms, and these are not isolated cases. So how should they overcome this? Frankly, it seems to me that even in the States, nobody knows or understands, because this is unprecedented. I understand that they have had times of civil war, but I still hope that given their long experience of teaching others, they will somehow find the strength to overcome it. But frankly, it will be difficult for them because they have brought the situation to a real internal confrontation by pitting people against each other. This is not a political debate. This is not rhetoric. This is not a campaign for an idea. This is real hatred sown in American society that is now now bearing fruit.